Ignition sequence start. 6, 5.
It's one small step for man.
2, 1.
Everything is go here.
Welcome to Stay Relevant, my wandering conversations with interesting people. I'm Mike Sobola.
Hey, this is Houston. We're copying.
The Eagle has landed.
And I'd like to welcome casting director Kimberly Skyrme. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello.
Let's start right off with House of Cards, something you've been working on for a couple of years now. And how is that? How did you get hooked up with that?
Well, fortunately, this business is about collaboration and our friendships and relationships. And so I'll first start by saying that it's great to be on your show because we've had a working relationship for a very long time, and I'm sure probably single-handedly locally you have been at the helm of a lot of the jobs I've ever received in town. So thanks for that. But then the continuing friend story is that my dear friend Ginny Galloway was the executive producer's assistant, season 1 of House of Cards. So I was able to work on 2 episodes, season 1, and then was in charge of local casting and background casting, season 2 and 3. So because of a friend, I got sucked into the quagmire.
It's kind of like that's the way it goes, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how you land jobs in this town, or in any town. You got a network. How is it working on the show, by the way?
I love it. It's a very demanding job, certainly with... unlike most features or a government project or something I've worked on locally, because there is 13 episodes and they're shot concurrently. It's week after week after week. We're just setting up for the next episode that's coming. So just as they'll start shooting something, we've already started preparing for the speaking roles of the next episode. So it's pretty busy.
And how does it feel to be able to give local actors work on such high profile
I love
shows?
That question because it really is my favorite thing about the whole job. I went to a 30-year high school reunion 2 summers ago, and when people ask what you do, most people don't know what a casting director is. So I would explain to them that I get people jobs, people who really want jobs. So to be able to, after having a 25-year career in Washington, D.C., Baltimore market, since I started 25 years ago in September, to be giving people jobs is really the best part of the job.
And, before it was The Wire and then Homicide. There's always something that pops up every once in a while. I guess this is that now. Do you ever get to go on the set when they're shooting? How does that work? I mean, you're around everybody. I mean, a lot of what you do is getting ready for the shoot, finding the people, and once they're shooting.
The casting piece is for sure behind the scenes. So I always joke, and we call our department the outcasts because we're not on set all the time. However, I do routinely go by at least once per episode, often on the first day they're starting an episode I like to go by, or in relation to the background work. Some of the scenes are big and very specific. So we had season 2, a Civil War reenactment scene, so there was a lot of people working. So me, as well as the rest of my staff, went out to help check in and just make sure things are moving smoothly. And season 3, we had some infants working. So we had, over the course of the day, I had 2 sets of twins and a set of triplets working, and because I've personally met the parents and met the children, that rather than just leave that to the devices of the crew for the day, I went and spent the day with them. So I find opportune times to really spend time with them and make sure everything's going okay.
And I'm sure actors find out that you're doing this, and they're like, Kimberly, get me on that show. I mean,
I think not only actors are inspired to be on the show.
Well, that's my next question. Yeah. How can I be on the show?
It has become a show that I feel is like an epidemic of, a disease of the best kind, that everybody really does like the show and wants to be on the show. I think there's some compelling actors. I think there's compelling writing. And it's just a new and interesting look at DC politics as far as a show is concerned. So actors, yes, of course, are clamoring to get on the show. And it's very funny that accidentally last season, being season 3, the breakdown of the first episode was leaked to the press, as well as published to a listserv of over 6,000 people, which included my private email and mobile phone number. So I got lots of emails and lots of calls in the last year. So everybody does want to be on the show. I'll get random calls from people and many, many, many emails. It's people interested in doing it. So actors, as well as certainly just regular run-of-the-mill people who just think it'd be great to be on the show because they love it so much, which went right down even to my step brother and sister and his business partner were really excited to be on the show. So they, came down, were a part of it. I had a friend from junior high school who actually is in politics and loves the show, and he came down from Connecticut to visit. So, I mean, people want to be in the show and will make an effort to travel to do so.
So it's great to give folks work. How does it feel on the other end where you're like, yeah, you're not quite right for the part? I mean, I would think that your job is a lot of that as well.
Oh, again, yes.
Because there's only so many parts to go around.
Exactly.
Right?
I probably do have the good news, bad news job of, yes, it's fantastic to call people and tell them they have the job, but there is so many people that have to audition, and exactly to the point, there's only so many spots, so there is a lot of, not this time, maybe next time. But I have certainly created the art of reminding people that auditions are about showcasing your talent, not getting a job. You always get the job you're intended to get, and I can keep them in mind for other things. There was an independent film that I worked on that after many, many auditions on House of Cards, this one gentleman, I just threw him into the mix. He was not at all the type that the director asked for, but because he'd made lots of interesting choices auditioning over and over again on House of Cards and just wasn't exactly right for what they were doing, the independent filmmakers fell in love with him, and he just brought a whole new character to this written character on the page that wasn't as interesting as what he brought to the table. So you find a job for them, even if they don't get a job on House of Cards.
So attitude's a big thing too. You got to be positive as an actor. You got to be polite. It all comes around
Absolutely.
eventually,
Personality.
right?
I did have a very funny interview on Good Morning DC, and the hosts on the show were just hysterical, and I did specifically mention them, but personality is part of it. I mean, you have to interface with the person who you're checking in with, and then obviously you have to interface with the casting director, and if you don't have some good personal skills, then you're just missing out on that kind of connection that's above and beyond your work, which is still, in the end of the day, part of the work.
What is your process? I know how we've done it here when we've cast. We have a couple of big casting productions where we've cast a lot of people. Is it any different for a popular show or a show with this many actors that you're going
It's
through?
still the same process as far as I'm concerned, still looking through photos, having interns and assistants, also working in that process so they can start that creative journey early on in selecting the photos and then calling people for auditions. And there is only, of course, so many spots. However, on a show like House of Cards, all I'm sending off is not headshots or actors showing up at auditions for directors or the casting people that I report to in New York and LA, but that they come into the office and we put them on videotape. So only, kind of approved video auditions are moving forward to the powers that be above the local office.
How difficult it is if you're not experienced, but you think, oh, I'll be really good. I could play that part. I mean, is the bar higher because it's a popular show?
I think it is, because in the end of the day, you're dealing with top-notch directors and have executive producers, which include people like Kevin Spacey, and a writer and executive like Beau Willimon, who were also, in some cases, looking at all auditions that are put forward, because they're very interested in keeping a certain level on the show, as well as each person really plays into moving the story forward, even if it's the smallest of piece. And if that person isn't authentic or, able to hold their own in a scene with Kevin Spacey or Robin Wright, everybody wants to make sure that the best people are on the show. And most people do not audition once and get on the show. I think in 2 seasons, I've only had that happen twice. And we audition for months and months and months at a clip. And so to have only 2 people through thousands of interviews actually get the job. Most people have to audition anywhere from 10 to 15 to, in some cases 40 and 50 times. And it's not that they're not good. Obviously, if you've auditioned 50 times, I wouldn't be calling you back if you weren't good. But it's such a creative ensemble, even if it is the person who's only saying 1 or 2 lines, depending who you're in the scene with. Are you appropriate with that scene? So you may be a fantastic actor, but you just seem not to fit exactly right within the scenes of the show. But we still keep calling you.
So what would an actor do, a younger actor or a less experienced, a greener actor, not necessarily younger, to try and break into the business?
For the less experienced actor or new actor, I still encourage people to do some background work. At least it gives you an opportunity to be exposed to a set and just see what goes on so that you're familiar with what happens. In most cases, if people are studying in a classroom situation, be it at university or even just in a workshop, it's all in theory. If you haven't ever been exposed to a set and you were to get a job and have a speaking role and you've never been in front of a camera, you don't know who the gaffer is, you don't know who the director is, you don't know about assistant directors, you don't really know how the system works, it could be very intimidating, which unfortunately could affect your performance. So to just know about filmmaking and spend a couple of days doing background work, or a really great opportunity to learn about the business is to do stand-in work. So an actor given an opportunity to do that because they're the same height, weight, hair color or something of a lead actor is really an exceptional experience, because you're actually spending more time with the director on any given day than the actual actors themselves, because you're sitting with the lighting, you're sitting with the camera rehearsals, and really having an opportunity to work with great professionals.
Are there people who do just that?
I don't know that it's necessarily their intention that they start out just doing it, but it certainly garners them a lot of skill to learn about the business. For example, Kevin's stand-in has been working now all 3 seasons. He, over time, has been given personal recommendations on books to read, things to do. He has Kevin Spacey as an indirect acting teacher, as well as then acquiring equipment from now working consistently for these 3 years of, smaller, not low end to no end, but decent equipment that he now plans to shoot his own short, and has come to know the crew. So he's got an amazing set of people who are skilled in their areas of expertise. So he plans to shoot a film himself soon. So it's become a great opportunity for him. And years ago, I met Renee Rousseau's stand-in, as well as Jamie Lee Curtis's on films that I worked. And both of those women loved the opportunity. They felt like they were getting paid to go to acting school just to watch those women work, because they were exceptional. And particularly the Jamie Lee Curtis one. She said she is so funny, and to just see how she translates that humor in True Lies was a really great opportunity for her. So I think that is by far the best, even opportunity to really learn about a set and acting and camera angles and so on and so forth.
There are a couple things that I always hate when I get them from actors. You get a headshot and a resume, and it's labeled headshot, resume. Normally, I can rename them, file them away, but there have been cases where I wanted to hire somebody. I couldn't find the person. Are there any things like that you think?
Well,
any little tips?
That is the good news, bad news part of the new technology. It's amazing, because if you ask me for somebody's headshot immediately, if I have access to it, and even now, again, with traveling, and I certainly do travel a lot, working on different projects, that I can send things to you immediately. But in the case that the actor sends it immediately, or I ask them to forward it to you, when it isn't saved properly, it doesn't do any of us any good, that it's not coded or they didn't put their name in the subject line. So no, we get a lot of those. And the volume I get, just based on what I do, it's really difficult to be able to rename everyone and rename that it's the film over the theater resume. So absolutely, why wouldn't you make sure that your materials go out 100%? If you were sending them in the mail, of course, your headshot is stapled to your resume, and it's coming often with a very brief letter, which has your address on it. So all of the materials that are arriving are cohesive. But of course, now with the internet, people think, oh, I'll just click and send.
Does anybody do the mail thing? Is a lot of that still being done?
Still being done, because I'm still old school. As I said, 25 years in the business. It's still nice to sit down with a cup of tea at night and pull pictures for people. And it allows then the assistants that are working to have a folder of people that we're calling through. But new technology, as I've done projects in New York while working on House of Cards, I'm not there getting the photographs. It was often quick turnaround, that we have had to do them online with breakdown services and casting networks and different online-based formats, so you can still look through the pictures and call them. But if you spend so much time in front of your computer all day, the last thing I want to do is sit down and look at thumbnails all night. So do still send them in a lot. And after the 6,000 person publication listserv at the beginning of season 3 in House of Cards, we just said taking no electronic submissions, because there's no way with 6,000 people just that we could even wade through the email. Much easier to sit down and wade through actual photographs than email, because you get the situation that many things are not labeled, they aren't labeled appropriately. So to refile them was just too much of a task. So we went for old school.
Folks have mentioned to me that, and these are actors who've said, they've been advised that, people want less glossy, less professional. They want more of a selfie, if you will, and some people even send selfies in. I mean, my understanding is that you don't want that. You want to put your best foot forward have a professional headshot done. Don't do it. Don't have your grandma do it, or your brother, or your friend who likes to take pictures. What's your take on that? Has it changed? Is that still a thing, or
I
what?
think that's a loose interpretation of what's going on. What will often happen is that if a director has just seen the headshot, they just want to see what you look like. Because so oftentimes I think headshots do not look like people. They just send me a selfie right now just so I can see what you look like today, right here, right now, not a non-manicured photograph. But I think you still need to have professional photographs or marketing materials. And that selfie thing is after they already know who you are and they just want to show the director exactly what you look like. Certainly now with self-submissions on videotapes, there was a guy who was a bucket drum player on House of Cards season 2. We needed it, and they're like, get it today, but it was raining out. I knew there was no way, musicians are going to race up to Baltimore for us to put them on tape. I said, at this point, we have to turn it around immediately. I don't care what they send us, even if it's an iPhone video. Well, the first guy to get his stuff in, even though it was raining, quickly went out in an alley, drizzling, played the bucket drums. His friend took it on an iPhone, and they sent it over. In the end of the day, with all the submissions we got, first person in, iPhone video. He actually did get the job, but you still have to, in most cases, not being a musician, have a good headshot and have some clips from a demo reel. Yes, you could do something on your iPhone and send it today, but that's not marketing. That's fulfilling an actual need and a request. So I think for the need and the request, absolutely. You could send somebody a selfie because they want to know what you look like today, not your headshot, depending on how old the headshot is. But if you're sending out a submission to introduce yourself to someone, why would you want to send a selfie? It just says, I haven't made an effort in my career to have proper marketing materials. Nobody at IBM is having their daughter make a business card because, we want to be new and innovative and organic. So get a headshot, but have, be ready to send a selfie if needed.
How do you stay relevant in business like this? You've done a lot of things over the years. Mm-hmm. You did casting a while back. You were did some props and wardrobe for a while. You still do a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. So you've kind of transitioned. You've kind of evolved. But how do you stay relevant? What would be your advice to other people? How do you do it? And how should other people do it?
Well, I think fortunately, very early in my career, I was so lucky that I was able to work on some very big shows. And one of the producers I work with on Pelican Brief mentioned at his point, because I asked him that very same question. I wasn't even 30 yet, and said, how do you do the marathon of this business? Because it's certainly a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if you start out sprinting, you'll never make the marathon. And he said that he consistently finds ways to change his job to keep it interesting so it keeps him present, which ultimately, in the end of the day, I think does keep you relevant because you are not only doing your job, but you're familiar with other people's jobs. I studied acting and directing in college, as well as, producing smaller productions. So I was definitely much more interested in directing and producing anyway, and then accidentally found this casting job, but knew that for me in the marathon, it was to be a producer. I met some really interesting producers along the way, and maybe that was why, I had a big interest in producing and finding great stories and creating opportunities for others to work, which is what you're doing as a producer. So I think I then did, take on having this event business by accident because I shot a low-budget movie in a bar that I was producing, and the guys had a catering company. So then, here you're doing that one craft, and because of my love of theater and having to take theater set design and costume design in college, that then when opportunities came up to help on wardrobe or do set design and so on, that I think those opportunities presented themselves, and I was happy to do it because instead of focusing big picture as a producer or even in one area as a casting director, I got to do something entirely different, which personally, I'm a creative person, although I've had a business for all these years, but at the core of it, I'm creative. So any type of opportunity to be creative. And it's just made me a better producer, too, because I'm familiar with that job and what it entails. I mean, shy of being a gaffer and a grip, I think I've probably done most every job in the business, including hot chocolate and marshmallows in the middle of the night and a shoot in a building that wasn't air conditioned or wasn't heated, and I was bringing people hot chocolate.
But that's you anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you.
Well, true.
Show up with like, oh, wow, look.
Accoutrement, no matter what it is.
So, but I would think, though, at some point you have to say, well, this is what I do. I'm Kimberly Skyrme, I'm a casting director, or I'm a producer, whatever it is. People want to know, what do you do? You can't do everything, although as a producer now, people want you to be a cameraman, an editor, and a shooter,
Exactly.
and a writer.
And which, fortunately, I haven't done all of that. So those technical jobs, including, I guess, gaffing and editing. But I think it was very interesting. And I don't know if I accidentally put this in something or if it came from an interview of, I'm going to speak at Citizen Jane Film Festival, part of their series at Stevens College. And underneath my photo in the advertisement, Paula put casting director, producer, storyteller. And so I think in the end of the day, if I really had to identify, it is that I'm a storyteller. So I'm sure I must have said that in conversation.
Perfect.
And so whatever muscle I'm exercising to be a storyteller, is it being a casting director, is it being a producer, is it being some sort of a designer, that I'm still always telling a story. And I think that's what it is. And at the helm of creating new series, as I've really ventured into deep development of series and features, you start to learn that to keep yourself relevant, you just have to learn more. And if you don't have a desire to learn, then you're probably not going to stay relevant. Because the minute you think you've arrived, to me, is the minute you've actually died in a creative business, because you've never arrived. Because there's always something to be learned and always another person to meet.
It's always changing.
It is. It's consistently evolving. And you need to be the investigator, you need to be the detective, you need to be the cheerleader, you need to be the parent to all these people you're working with, which ultimately I think continues to keep me relevant because I learn something new every day, or my instinct that you do some research to try to get a project made, and what you learn in the process is, my instincts are right, this is a great project, or maybe I need to rethink these things, or I need to cultivate these people to be better at what it is they're doing.
But storytelling is a good point, because I maintain that everything we do in life is telling stories and telling different stories. And I mean, it could be very simple, but it's to really engage people, you have to tell stories. It could be an industrial or corporate video, some government video, but to really do it well, you have to engage your audience. You have to entertain, and part of that is storytelling.
Well, I think it's at the core of it. And I studied to be a teacher long before I studied acting. And what I did dial it back to, again, in this continuous of maintaining relevance, why do I do what I do and what's at the core of it, which I think is what keeps you going, was that my favorite thing to do with children when I was teaching 3- and 4-year-olds was story time, because they're so engaged and stories can teach. So if in fact you are not in this industry as a storyteller, and story being paramount, you're not teaching people things. And ultimately we have an opportunity in a medium that we can create social change in a very prolific way if you're a good storyteller. And there's a difference between a storyteller and being a story seller. Some people are just writing and in this business to be sellers. And I think if you're truly a storyteller, your product will sell, because people want to know and will hear your story and want to know it. So that's why so many people are writing scripts, and they're not necessarily selling, because they're focusing on selling, not on telling. And, the good stories always get made. I mean, bad stories get made too, but I think truly the good ones do, even if it takes a long time to find and put all of the right people together. I mean, at an awards function I was at, it took them 10 years to get Brokeback Mountain made. It was a very successful movie, but it took them 10 years to get it made. So you can't just make stories overnight.
What about social media? How does that work in what you do? I wasn't born with a cell phone or an iPhone in my hand, so I have a learning curve. Mm-hmm. How does it fit in for you, and how do you do that?
I am fascinated by the whole phenomenon, and I think, again, in the spirit of the context here of keeping relevant, that it's, whether you like it or not, it is our new reality, and I think you have to pay attention to reality, and surrounding yourself with young people to keep yourself current on how it really affects them. And it is fascinating to see. I started casting when everyone didn't have an answering machine, so it was a big deal when people started getting answering machines, or voicemail, or somebody had a pager. So we've been around to see the technology change, and I think depending at what age you're at when the technology changes, that it's commonplace for you. And I think, people over 40, let's say, this new social media thing is different, because we're used to getting a postcard for an event. And then we rolled into getting an email for an event, and okay, that's fine, and it's, important events still get an actual mailed invitation, and then we get email, and now, it could be 140 characters in a tweet, and then you know where to be. So I think you have to either embrace it yourself and do it because people want to see it, and that's things people are following, or you surround yourself with young people who do it and monitor it for you. One of my volunteers from the Silver Docs Film Festival started at 13 and then went off to college, and he was very involved in social media at his college. So now he manages, I was going to say 90%, but maybe 95% of what goes on in the Kimberly Skyrme Casting Facebook page. And, I contribute periodically and will forward things. I'm a big Instagram fan because I love photographs, and that's, to me, like instant postcards that you're sending out to everyone with just a quick description. But I will forward them back to Facebook so that people can keep track of what's going on. And it gives people an opportunity to keep in contact with folks, regardless of whether you've seen them or you'll call them. And it's great to just get that messaging. I was a fan of Facebook when my very first intern ever tracked me down. And I thought, I always wondered what happened to her. So I think it's a great way to just keep in touch, even, from afar. And it's absolutely, now Twitter has become such a demanding component of a business. I think you have to be on Twitter, and if you're not, you're just missing out because people are following you to see what you have to say, and it is only 140 characters, and when do you find time to do that? So I know I need to even get better at Twitter. Alex has, one Twitter account, KS Casting, and then I have the one that's my name, and people know my name, so they're searching for that more than KS Casting, so I have to even be more present in that forum. So I think it's a necessary, and I don't say evil, but necessary evil, just being funny, because I think you do have to keep current and let people know things. And if you don't necessarily have much to say yourself, but you're following people that are interesting, then forward that along so people just feel that you're a relevant voice. And I'm very specific about things that I share, but I have had people come back and say, thanks for sharing that. It was relevant. I appreciate reading your post. So I don't think you can over-litter information. I think you have to be really specific about it because and even in that way, creating a brand for yourself of information that you're sharing. So you want it to be clear, concise, and relevant.
You do a lot of film festivals. You go to Sundance, South by Southwest. I mean, you're all over the map with these things. I'm getting tweets and Facebook updates and things from you all the time. And you're like, oh, what? Oh, I can't do the podcast. I'm in Dubai or whatever. Right? Like, wow. So how does that fit into to who you are, and where do you see it going in the future?
I think festivals are a really interesting and intriguing part of our business. For me, Sundance has become my one time a year that while it's work and I'm still networking with people there, it's an opportunity to really watch films and see them at the beginning. For example, Whiplash has received so much praise in the industry and at the award ceremonies, and I was able to see that in 2014 at Sundance. And again, one of those opportunities where you see something, and if I could have stood in line again and watched it immediately, I would have. I thought it was really interesting and very well done. And so you're able to see the trajectory of films that are being shown at the film festivals, as well as then meeting other people in the industry. And I think it's a nice opportunity to be meeting people, not when you need them, but building relationships that, again, will turn into my most recent engagement with my friend Ginny, who introduced me to House of Cards, was being at the Bhutan International Film Festival. That was all because of a many multiple year friendship that you're then doing those festivals. And it's an opportunity to meet and network and give back. I was on a number of panels at the New York Lounge. So everything I've learned over the years from people, now people are asking me to be on the panel to give back and give information. And through that, there was a younger gentleman in the audience who has a new and fortunately very successful production company. He's acquired books, and Robert Zemeckis has just optioned, one of the books to have a screenplay written, but he was in the audience. So now I've met a new potential client because somebody else asked me to give back. So I was choosing to do it, but yet I met somebody I can now collaborate with on a project. So I think you're consistently meeting new people there. And over years, again, you build these relationships that you don't know when you need the people, but then something will, come up that it's a great collaboration.
And isn't that kind of the crux of our industry? Relationships, knowing people, and just networking and giving back. And while you're working on something, I mean, Women in Film, TIVA, and local organizations, that's kind of what those are about. It's not about handing out your business card. It's about meeting people, working together, and getting to know them and trust them.
Yes. Well, and someone recently asked me, I was in New York last week, and she said, oh, should I join Women in Film? Well, I'm going to meet people there that I can pitch my project to. And my immediate response was, well, I think you should join. However, if that's the sole reason you're joining, it will probably never work out for you because your whole goal is only to get something out of it. You're not going just to meet people and find people that might work well with it. You're just simply going to find somebody to pitch your project to. And anywhere in life, that's certainly not a Zen approach. And it's the same with film organizations and going to festivals. If you're really only going thinking you're going to meet people, it's really about meeting them and building a relationship with them over time. For example, again, another person I met at Sundance happens to be the executive director founder at Holly Shorts. Well, now, having met him and seen him when I was in LA and then seeing him again the following year at Sundance, he and I now have a relationship that if I find short films that I think would be great for his opportunity, that rather than a filmmaker being forced to go through submitting and being one of thousands, I can personally send him these short films so that somebody can, beat the system a little bit based on that personal relationship. Well, if I hadn't gone to Sundance 2 years in a row and seen him and followed up and went to the Short Film Festival when I was in LA, then I wouldn't have this relationship with him. I didn't go in meeting him thinking, oh my gosh, I want to be able to get my friend's films to Holly Shorts directly to the executive director. I just went, no, nice guy, he's fun. Let's, keep in touch and build that relationship.
Now, what if I don't have a property? What if I just am, I think I might want to network. Mm-hmm. Does it help to go to these events? I mean, at what level do you start saying, oh, I'm going to go to Sundance? I don't have a film, but should I go? Should I go to South by Southwest? I mean, if you have a film and you want to get in there, I think maybe you should go. But
I think you absolutely should go. I mean, you and I have known each other, it's probably 20 years right now because of being on a board together of a film organization. And it's the same by going to the film festival. I've gone for the last, I think, 5 years straight. I had been a number of years and then took a hiatus and have gone for 5 years now. And some of those relationships are what have bonded the LA relationships, because I don't get out to LA a lot, but a lot of people from Los Angeles are there. So you can network with them there without making the trip to Los Angeles. And then, although I go back and forth to New York a lot of the relationships that I've really solidified have been New Yorkers at Sundance, because New York does have a lounge there that they have programs going on for 5 of the 10 days of Sundance. So you're able to spend some quality time with people, not just seeing them even at a function, at a networking event of a film organization, because you're able to spend extra time. You're able to go see films together or talk about the films afterwards. So I think it's absolutely worth going. Even if it's, again, back to my point of, looping back on why these things are important, go do background work, learn about a film set. Well, if you go to a festival, because you may have something there someday, if you understand how to navigate before you get there with something to sell and promote, again, it's a familiar environment to you. So I think it's really important to go. And as a friend of mine said, she calls it a convention for film people. Business people go to conventions. Why wouldn't you go to something like Sundance that is a convention for industry people, or at South by Southwest, if there's a music component to your film, absolutely hone in on that. Go there, see what it's like before you take a film there. Because maybe you can cross-promote and have a band that's in your film or providing music for your film be part of the music festival, and then you can be part of the film festival, and you're much more interesting to program in that way. But if you don't do the research and go to know what's the best platform for you, then you simply don't know. So it again goes back to education and keeping yourself relevant. You got to get out there and do stuff to be relevant.
I think it's very good advice. Well, Kimberly, thank you for stopping by and being interviewed. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The podcast is Stay Relevant, wandering conversations with interesting people. Original music by Popmark Media on the web at popmarkmedia.com. See and hear more on my website at MikeSobola.com. Until next time, try and stay relevant.